Assalamu alaikum. I'm Tamara Gray. I am the Executive Director and Chief Spirituality Officer of Rabota, and I'm happy to be here for ISNA today to talk about spirituality in Ramadan and how to gain that spirituality. I think the expert that we need to look for, or let's say listen to, is Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali divides the fasting into 3 different levels, and one of them is the fasting of the elect. So those who really want to be at the top. And whenever I read things like this in old books, I think about our culture today. And I recognize that our culture today is a culture where everyone wants to be of the elect. Everyone wants to be of the sabiqun, if you will. Meaning that if you go to school, we want our children to be valedictorian. We want them to be at the top of their class. If you go to work, you want to move up the ladder, have a raise, take your boss's job, even become maybe the CEO of that company. Many people want to run their own business so they can be at the top of their game. If they're running their own business, they want their business not only to make enough money to sustain them, but to be the best in the field. So we've been trained through capitalism, perhaps, or Western society, or whatever, it doesn't matter really, to think I want to be of the elect. I want to be of the best. And so when it comes to our Islamic responsibilities, and especially something that is ritual like Ramadan, it's really important that we don't fall into a rut and say to ourselves, it's okay, I'm going to be a commoner. Because if we are seeking to be of the elite amongst the people of dunya, we shouldn't be seeking to be of the commoners, if you will, of the people of Akhirah. We should be seeking to be of the elite. And so Imam al-Ghazali gives us 6 tips for that, of how to gain our fasting, how to make this fasting something that will make us unique in this world as Muslims. And so the first thing he advises us is to guard our gaze. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that there are 5 things that break the fast. Amongst them, one of them is gazing at something in lust. Now, of course, this isn't fiqh. That doesn't break your fast fiqhan. So in fiqh, even if you're watching Netflix with inappropriate shows, fiqhan, in fiqh, your fast is not broken. Imam al-Ghazali is talking about a spiritual level here. He's talking about becoming of the elect. And so if we want to really benefit from Ramadan, we have to think, where are my eyes this Ramadan? Now, with the pandemic, so many of us are home. And being at home, our eyes are perhaps falling on Netflix more than usual instead of less than usual in Ramadan. And of course, Netflix and whatever else like it, Prime and Apple TV and what have you. They have things that are of no harm to the eyes, and they have things that are of harm to the eyes. And so we want to be adults about this. And we want to control our eyes and where they go, recognizing that our eyes are bringing into our heart whatever it sees. I know that during this pandemic, people are struggling with many things. And one thing I think people are struggling with is being at home. Instead of being able to go to the masjid. A lot of men especially are struggling with this, but also a number of women are struggling with this, not being able to gather, not being able to be together. But this injunction from Imam al-Ghazali for our eyes, in a way, we are getting specialized training during the pandemic, because when we are together, we have the possibility of bringing hungry eyes to our gatherings. In Syria, there was a proverb which was something to the effect of, be careful of the person with hungry eyes. And so hungry eyes, what are hungry eyes? Hungry eyes are people that are looking at matters of this dunya and saying, oh, I want that. Oh, I want that. So, for example, looking at someone's car and saying, I want that car instead of my car, someone's house and saying, I want that house instead of my house. Or, God forbid, someone's spouse and saying, why is my spouse not like that spouse? These are things that are very dangerous to the heart and dangerous to the community as well. So, alhamdulillah, one of the benefits of the pandemic is we're not exposed to all of that, and we can train our eyes. We can train our eyes to be contained, to look with love on our families. So we can bring the lowered gaze that Imam al-Ghazali is talking about, we can expand that to an open gaze to our family, and an open gaze with an open heart, where for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of complaining about what we see and getting short-tempered and irritable, we can look with eyes of love, understanding, and mercy upon the people in our family, recognizing that if we are struggling, they too are struggling, whether they are college-age students who are having to do their courses at home, whether they are children having to go through homeschooling, or moms overwhelmed by their online work, plus their online homeschooling, plus the cooking, and plus trying to fulfill their own schedule of Ramadan, or the father who is perhaps really worried about the future and eyeing his savings account daily. So let's have compassion for one another, and with our eyes, let's use that. Let's think about what Imam al-Ghazali says in lowering our gaze towards that which is harmful. Make sure that we're doing that if we want to have the fast of the elect. But at the same time, as we raise our gaze to what is halal, let it be a gaze of love and goodness and kindness, in order for us to fulfill the injunction of Ramadan and be of the sabiqun, to be of those who are of the elect and really benefiting from our fast, The second rule that Imam al-Ghazali says for those who want to really benefit from Ramadan is to guard the tongue. And going back to that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said 5 things that break the fast. Again, this isn't about tafaqud, this is about spiritual breaking of the fast. One of them we already said was gazing at something that is of lust. Another one is lying and backbiting, slander, and false oath. Those are the 5 altogether now. La ilaha illallah. So let's really talk about lying and backbiting. Let's start with those 2. We want to guard our tongue in Ramadan, so we want to really know what we say. The thing about lying is that it's a habit. It becomes a habit, and it's a cultural habit in many Muslim cultures. Let's really think about that for a minute. The real shame, I believe, that this cultural habit came from the trauma of colonialism, where in being led by those who don't wish to uplift, but wish to destroy, those who are not part and parcel of the culture, colonizers, oppressors, whatever word you want to use, the culture developed a way of getting around the oppression by telling falsities, which in that situation is acceptable. But to expand that culture into our interactions with one another, and into our interactions with our families, and even into our interactions with our very selves, we've begun to tell untruths to ourselves about what is happening and what we're doing and how well we're doing. So this lying becomes something that is damaging our Ramadan. And so we want to push the pause button. We're in the middle of Ramadan now, and it's worth it to take a minute, go into the forgotten sunnah of i'tikaf. I know that in general, i'tikaf is done in the masjid, but for today, create a place in your home and say, Hada masjidi, this is my masjid. And then enter into it in a state of i'tikaf. And in that space, just use it to think. Maybe bring a pencil and a paper, and instead of your phone, so you're not distracted by other WhatsApps, etc. And think, how is my tongue? When am I telling untruths? When am I saying things that are just to cover myself because I don't want to deal with conflict? When am I backbiting, because that's another one. What am I saying things about people that are unkind and unnecessary? Just filling in time by talking about people. There are some families where the culture is so deeply rooted in enjoying one another by criticizing other people that the struggle to stop backbiting will be a very big struggle for you if you are going to embark on this work. But this is important work. We as Muslims are not called to backbite. We're called to enjoin what is good and forbid, push back on what is wrong. Backbiting hurts. And it causes trouble between people. And for the Prophet ﷺ, it breaks your fast, meaning it breaks that spiritual fast, meaning we cannot become of the elect if we are spending the day in backbiting or spending the day in mocking and criticizing people. And let me just drop here one of the groups of people that have become acceptable to mock. And those are those who are trying really hard to keep their Ramadan special. Across the world, we are being taught that it's not okay to mock people of different races, different ethnicities, different religions. Alhamdulillah, this is important learning. But there are spaces and places where it is becoming acceptable to mock those who choose to hold a conservative view or a conservative lifestyle when it comes to their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's make sure that of all the people that we are, God forbid, backbiting or mocking at home, we never backbite those who seek Allah, and especially not those who are working for Allah. This is really important. Excuse me. We don't want to be of those who are eating poison. There is a story that happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ that is really mind-boggling, where two women came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and they were so famished that they asked him for permission to break their fast. So we think, okay, any of us, if somebody came to us and asked, we would say, SubhanAllah, if it's dangerous for you, maybe you should break your fast. But the Prophet ﷺ had prophetic insight, and he had an understanding that the cause of their hunger was the ingestion of the flesh of other human beings because of backbiting. And so he brought them like a vat or something and said, vomit in this. And they did. And they one after the other vomited out flesh and blood. And people were astonished. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this is what you ate of those you were doing ghiba of, that you were backbiting. Just for a moment, I want to remind us that the cause of their difficulty in fasting was their poor behavior. So know that too much Netflix, too much backbiting, all this kind of stuff will affect your ability to fast. Now, of course, for some people, it's physically difficult. May Allah help you and bless you and make it easier for you. But in many cases, perfectly healthy people struggle with fasting. And this is even after many days, in which case it's time to pause and look and see, how am I speaking? What am I doing? How am I living? And certainly when it comes to those who have been working for Allah for many years, we want to be very careful. The other day, a young person was in criticism of something that an elder sheikh had said. Now, it's okay to question. It's okay to even say, that doesn't sound like that sounds like his opinion, not something that is rooted Islamically, and I disagree. No problem. But to mock, because we have a strange habit of once we start criticizing, we want to mock. But to mock or be rude means that unlike those women who ate the flesh of those who they had spoken about, you will be eating poison. This will affect you physically and spiritually. So be very careful in this month of Ramadan of not backbiting and talking and speaking badly or mocking anyone, but especially those who are working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you agree with them or disagree. But agreement and disagreement has nothing, should not have anything to do with mocking and cruelty and backbiting. Okay, well, the third category that Imam al-Ghazali talks about are the ears, the category is the ears. And so here again, now we're thinking, what am I listening to? And subhanAllah, these all go very much together because the Prophet ﷺ reminded us that the one who backbites and the one who listens are both in sin. So if you're telling yourself, well, alhamdulillah, I don't say anything, I just listen to everybody backbiting all day long, it's time to gain some courage. It's time to speak up and say, please don't talk about people like that in front of me, especially if we're talking about family. We can say very calmly and very lovingly, I feel uncomfortable talking about this. Can we talk about something else? Or just change the topic. Talk about iftar. What do you want to eat? Or start complimenting people in the house. MashaAllah, that food you made last night was so delicious. Or MashaAllah, I really think the way you fixed that. The garbage disposal is amazing. It's not leaking anymore. Talk about positive things. Talk about beautiful things. Talk about things that are uplifting to the heart. Talk about the Quran. What did you read yesterday in the Quran? Talk about it with your family. Have a conversation. Talk about how it felt to recite. Talk about where you are in your reading. Maybe talk about how you're falling short and maybe they can help you read some more. But as we think about what our ears are hearing, let's be very careful that our ears are only hearing khair and goodness. The interesting thing about the eyes is that we can close them. If we find ourselves with something in front of us that is inappropriate, even we can close them quickly to avoid that image being carved in our memory. But our ears, you can't close them. So what you listen to there, you will be stuck with. So be very careful what you expose yourself to in listening. If you are a person who likes to listen to things during the day, there are wonderful playlists on places like Spotify, etc., that are all nasheed, or even a mix sometimes of Quran, nasheed, and little talks and this and that. You can find Ramadan playlists by people that people randomly put up. Or you can make your own. Make your own special ear cleaning playlist to make sure that your ears are protected and stay clean. The fourth one is our hands and our feet. So the hands and feet is really interesting because how does this connect to our heart and our becoming of those who are fasting of the elect? Well, for Imam al-Ghazali, it's all about not doing what is wrong. I would add to that, to become of the elect, we also want to do what is intensely good. So we want to make sure that our hands and our feet are not doing work or bringing us to places that are wrong. And part of that is make sure that you're not procrastinating. Don't waste time. I always think about Ka'b ibn Malik whenever I think I want to procrastinate something. And Ka'b ibn Malik, of course, his story is a long story. We won't have time to tell it today. But it's a story of a person who, because of his procrastination, spent 50 days in a community timeout. And so as we think about doing good with our hands and our feet to become of the spiritually elect in Ramadan and really feel this Ramadan, we want to think about getting things done, not procrastinating, not putting things off. and saying Bismillah and doing what we need to do, to step up and volunteer, to step up and give in sadaqah, to step up and pray Taraweeh at home. Stand up and do it. When the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina and he found the people ill, their illness was so bad that they were sitting while they prayed. It strikes me what he said to them. He said, "Oh, my companions, oh people, the prayer of the one that is sitting is only worth half of the reward. They're ill. There's a virus going around. I say virus, it's called a plague, and it's an illness, a bad illness." But then the response of the companions is what is really a teaching moment, because they struggle to their feet to get the reward, the full reward of the prayer. Now, if we think about that and we think about how we are at home, very often it's easier to pray Taraweeh in a group because we are encouraged by the ones around us. We draw from the strength of those around us. As they stand up, we stand up. To be at home and praying on your own, it can be much more difficult to stand up again and stand up again and stand up again. But if you want to be of those who are the elect, make sure that you struggle to your feet. Take your feet and walk them from the kitchen to the prayer carpet. I read a wonderful tweet today by Dr. Rania from the Khalil Foundation. And she said she thinks this Ramadan coronavirus is a blessing for women, because instead of spending hours and hours and hours in the kitchen cooking, we have more time now for prayer. So I'll add to that and say, since we have more time, let's take our feet and walk them to our home masjid, the one we made at home, and spend more time in prayer. And that way we're using our feet in the way to be of the elect in this fasting. And let's use our hands to hold the Quran. Let's use our hands to when we make food, to make food in loving ways, and then to leave the kitchen. Get out of the kitchen half an hour before Maghrib. Get out if you can. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, sit down and make dua. Put your hands up and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Use your hands for dua. Use your hands for dua in this month. The dua of the fasting person is answered. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that the Imam al-Adl, the just Imam, and the fasting person, their dua is answered. So make dua. Use your hands to make dua. And the fifth one, and there are 6, we're almost done. And so let's review them. The first one was to lower the gaze. The second one was to protect the tongue, guard the tongue. The third one was to protect the ears. The fourth one, the hands and the feet. And the fifth one is, I can't read my handwriting. Oh my goodness. Oh yes, thank you. The fifth one is protect the stomach by not overeating. Protect the stomach by not overeating. When you go to break your fast, don't overdo. Don't have 16 different dishes on the table. Soup. Something simple. Eat simply. Don't make your stomach heavy. Keep it light. It'll help with your taraweeh. If you're staying up most of the night, you can eat and you need more nutrition. You can eat at different intervals. But don't make your stomach come in the way of your fast. And the last one is the heart. Work on the heart in Ramadan so that you can be of the elect fasters. Now, to work on the heart means to make it a healthy heart. And in order to do that, we need to really think about what is unhealthy in it. And so again, referring to the times that we're in this pandemic, the feelings that are overwhelming us are fear, anxiety, anger. There's a lot going on in fake news and false news and frustrating what's right, what's wrong, what's safe, what's not safe. There's a lot of that, and this causes a disturbance to the heart. it causes fear. Truth is always our friend. It causes fear and it causes anxiety and frustration with the world, and things that are happening in the world are painful. To learn of Latif, the murder of the young Black man who was running, it was so painful for me personally, and I can't even imagine for our Black brothers and sisters who saw that, how they felt. And that kind of pain, so I want us to know there are different kinds of pain in the heart that we need to learn how to manage in Ramadan. Pain at injustice is a healthy pain. It's a pain that we need to take, however, and give it to Allah and say, Ya Allah, Ya Qawi, oh, the strong one. And here I commend those who were able to do the work necessary to get those particular people arrested. But this is one story of so many. So we have to keep our hearts healthy so we can keep on working in the world. And so we want to be aware of the feelings that are healthy and the feelings that are damaging. Pain and grief is healthy. Anger and bitterness is not healthy. Anger and bitterness means we're moving away from tawakkul ala Allah, from trusting in Allah, to recognizing that, to the anger in the situation we're in. And listen, the situation we're in is anger inducing, to be sure. But this is the only heart we have. And we need this heart to have clear and beautiful prayers. I would like to suggest that instead of anger at the COVID situation, at the race situation, at the economic situation, at the healthcare situation, and go on and on and on, instead of anger, that we use all of that energy for dua and tahajjud and worship, to become of those, because then instead of anger exhausting us, we will be able to use the energy of fasting and tahajjud and dhikr and all of the worship activities that we can do when we have a calm heart, a clear and not angry heart, and not bitter heart. I want to be careful here the words I use, because the legitimate anger is legitimate anger. But there's the heart, we all know it. When it gets to the part where we are paralyzed, we can't do anything. That's a trick of shaitan. We never want to be paralyzed not to do anything. Even the companions, with all of the oppression. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu himself was dragged around the Kaaba in chains, with all of the oppression, with all of their frustration and their hurt and their pain. It wasn't anger that drove the work. It was tawheed. In fact, I would say it was love of Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. We see Bilal in Medina. This story just blows my mind. He used to stand on top of the house of a woman of Najjar, of Bani Najjar, who then said about him later that every single day he would make dua for the Quraysh to be guided. Just mashallah, mashallah. What kind of a heart is that? That's the kind of heart that we are striving for. We're striving for a heart that can make the changes that the early companions made in society. And for that, we want to circle back now and think about our Ramadan. Ramadan is a month of fasting, to be sure, but we want to control all of these different aspects to become of the elect. And if and when we do, we will fill our Ramadan with fasting, tarawih, dua, tahajjud, qiyam al-layl, Quran reading. And from all of this, we will develop taqwa and maghfirah, forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will bring us to a place at the end of Ramadan that will make us a stronger community. And in our strength, we will be more capable of being able to make the real systemic changes that the world needs on all different levels, in all different places, in all different in small areas, small cultural problems, big cultural problems, small systemic problems, big systemic problems, because we are a billion people. And if we stand on the straight path together, linking arm in arm, working together with our strong organizations, fueled by tahajjud, fueled by dhikrullah, fueled by dua, fueled by siyam that is accepted, fueled by being of those who are of the elect, we will change this world, and we will truly stand as the khulafa. We will truly stand as those who the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed to the angels as those who that he knew about and they knew not. Let us be of those who call to good, push back on what is evil, but let's do it in a way that is really effective. And for that, we need this Ramadan. We need this time at home. We need this time for our worship. We need this time to fill our hearts, our minds, and our love, and our hearts and our minds and our bodies and our souls with the love of Allah, the love of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the practices that underline and represent all of that. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today. Assalamu alaikum.